I, 32M, am, or I guess was, engaged to Clara, 30F. We've been together for 5 years. Lived together for 4. We have a dog, a rescue named Buster, who has more personality than most people I know. We had a whole life, or so I thought. It all came crashing down last Tuesday. It was a normal evening. I made dinner. We watched some show about competitive glass blowing. She seemed a little distant, glued to her phone, but that wasn't unusual. Clara lives her life through a curated Instagram feed. Every meal, every outing, every vaguely inspirational sunset had to be documented. I'm a private person. It was a point of contention, but you compromise, right? Around 11 p.m., I was getting ready for bed. She was still on the couch, thumb typing furiously. I kissed the top of her head and said I was turning in. She just grunted. I fell asleep to the sound of her faint, rhythmic tapping. I woke up around 2 a.m. to get some water. The living room light was still on. Claire was gone. A little prickle of unease went down my spine. I checked her bedroom. Empty. Her car keys were gone. Her work bag was gone. A suitcase from the top of the closet was gone. My heart started doing a frantic drum solo against my ribs. I grabbed my phone, fingers clumsy, to call her. That's when I saw the notification. Clara had posted to her Instagram story. It was a picture of her clinking a champagne flute with some guy I'd never seen before. He had his arms slung around her shoulder, a smug grin plastered on his face. They were in a fancy, dimly lit bar. The caption was what really twisted the knife. Some boys never become men. Trading up, and then, just to make sure the knife was firmly embedded, she tagged him. Let's call him Liam. I felt the air leave my lungs. It was that specific, gut-wrenching shock where your vision tunnels and you can hear your own blood roaring in your ears. 5 years. A whole life. Ended via an Instagram story. The sheer, breathtaking disrespect of it. The cowardice. I clicked on Liam's profile. It was public. Of course it was. He looked like the kind of guy who thought owning a boat was a personality trait. Lots of pictures of him in branded polo shirts, holding fish he'd caught, smiling with a blindingly white set of veneers. And then I saw it. The third picture on his feed. A professional maternity shoot. A beautiful, beaming woman with her hands cradling a very pregnant belly. Liam was kissing her forehead. The caption read, "Can't wait to meet our little princess. My amazing wife, Sarah, is a champion. Hashtag family, hashtag blessed, hashtag girl dad." The photo was 3 weeks old. My first thought wasn't rage. It wasn't even sadness. It was a cold, quiet, surgical clarity. A thought so precise it felt like it had been handed to me from on high. This is a problem with a solution. I didn't call Clara. I didn't text her. I didn't smash a single thing. I went to our shared laptop and opened up our engagement photo gallery. The pictures were professionally done. We looked happy, blissful even. It was a lie, but it was a well-photographed one. I selected my favorite. It was a close-up of us, her showing off the ring, me kissing her temple. Her smile looked genuine. It was the one her mother had framed on her mantelpiece. I went back to Instagram. I found my own, rarely used, account. I posted the photo. The caption was simple. Congratulations. Then I tagged Clara, and I tagged Liam, and then, with a steady hand, I searched for his wife. Sarah. Her profile was public too. Lots of baby prep photos. A virtual nursery tour. A countdown to her due date. I tagged Sarah. I put my phone down on the kitchen counter, face up. I poured myself a large glass of water and sat down on the floor, my back against the cabinets. Buster patted over and rested his head on my knee, whining softly. It took less than a minute. First, my phone lit up. A notification from Clara. Then another. And another. A flurry of them. Then Liam's name popped up. Then it started buzzing with a call. Clara. I ignored it. Then Liam called. Ignored. Then across the silent apartment, I heard it. A faint buzzing. Clara's iPad, which she'd left on the coffee table. The screen lit up. A cascade of notifications. Instagram. Facebook. WhatsApp. Text messages. Her friends. My friends. Her family. My family. Everyone we knew. Seeing the post, seeing the tags, connecting the dots in real time. It was 2:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I had just calmly and very deliberately detonated 2 lives with a single, well-placed photo. I took a sip of water. It was just the beginning. Update 1. Thank you for the comments and DMs. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but the support has been grounding. A few people called the story fake. I wish it were. I wouldn't wish this particular brand of 2 a.m. clarity on anyone. The 24 hours after my post were a blur of digital noise. My phone went into airplane mode. Clara's iPad, however, I left on. It was a symphony of chaos. Group chats exploding. Friends demanding answers. Her mother calling repeatedly. Her name flashing on the screen with an increasingly frantic energy. The first real-world consequence happened at 7 a.m. A frantic banging on our apartment door. I looked through the peephole. It was Clara. She looked like she'd been dragged backward through a hedge. Mascara running, hair a mess. The chic, smug woman from the Instagram story was gone. In her place was a cornered animal. I didn't open the door. I know you're in there. Open the door, you psycho, she screamed. Her voice was shrill. I just stood there, watching her through the peephole. It was a strange, out-of-body experience. I wasn't angry. I felt detached, like a scientist observing a reaction. Her phone started ringing in her hand. She answered it, her back to my door. I couldn't hear the other side, but I could hear her. No, Mom, it's not what it looks like. I don't know why he would do that. He's being insane. No, Liam is just a friend. Yes, he's married, but it's complicated. Gaslighting. Deflection. The classic playbook. She eventually gave up and left. An hour later, the email started. The first was from Clara. A long, rambling tirade. I was a monster. A sociopath. How could I do this to her? I had ruined her life over a misunderstanding. The second email was from a lawyer. This I had not expected so quickly. It was a cease and desist. It was aggressive. It accused me of harassment, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. It demanded I take down the malicious post immediately. It was signed by a lawyer from a very expensive, very powerful firm. Liam's family, it turned out, had money. The kind of money that keeps lawyers on retainer for little problems like this. This is where things didn't go perfectly to plan. I had anticipated social fallout, not a legal broadside within 12 hours. My quiet, methodical revenge suddenly had the potential to get very loud and very expensive. The letter was a scare tactic, a good one. For a moment, I felt a flicker of fear. They were trying to bully me into silence, to frame me as the aggressor. But then I reread the letter. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm a careful reader. The letter was full of bluster, but it was predicated on the idea that I had posted something untrue. But I hadn't. I posted a photo of my fiancée. I wrote congratulations, and I tagged relevant parties. Nothing I did was illegal. It was just devastatingly effective. The letter did, however, achieve one thing. It showed me their strategy. They were going to paint me as the crazy, vindictive ex, and Clara was going to play the victim. So I adjusted my own strategy. This was no longer just about social revenge. It was about protecting myself. First, I documented everything. Screenshots of her story, his profile, the tags, the timestamps. I saved the threatening emails. I started a folder. Second, I called my own lawyer, a guy I'd used for my freelance contracts. He's sharp, and more importantly, he's not afraid of a fight. I explained the situation calmly, factually. He told me the letter was 90% bullshit, but that we needed to be careful. He advised me to take the post down. You've already won that battle, he said. The damage is done. The screenshot is out there. Now you pivot to defense and look like the reasonable one. So I did. I deleted the post. It felt like a concession, and it stung. But my lawyer was right. The internet is forever. The screenshot was already circulating among our friends and family like samizdat. The real problem was the apartment. We were both on the lease. Her name was on the utilities. Our finances were tangled together in a dozen small, annoying ways. Untangling them would be messy, and I knew she would use that to her advantage. That evening, I got a text from her. Clara, I'm coming to get my things tomorrow, with a police escort, so you don't try anything. The sheer audacity. The implication that I was the threat. That's when the detachment cracked, just for a second, and a wave of pure, cold anger washed over me. Not the hot, screaming kind. The quiet, patient kind. I texted back a single word. Me? Okay. She wanted to play hardball. Fine. Let's play. I spent the rest of the night on the phone with my lawyer and combing through our lease agreement. And I found it. A beautiful, overlooked little clause. And I knew exactly how I was going to use it. The police escort was a nice touch, but she was about to find out that a uniform doesn't supersede a legally binding contract. Update 2. The support is unreal. For those asking about Buster, he's my boy. He's not going anywhere. He's currently asleep on my feet. He's the only sane one in this whole mess. So the police escort, Clara's masterstroke of performative victimhood. She texted me that she and her escort would be arriving at noon on Saturday. I spent Friday preparing. My lawyer had confirmed my reading of the lease was correct. It was a standard co-tenancy agreement. We were jointly and severally liable, but it also had a specific clause about property abandonment. If a tenant removes their personal effects and shows intent to no longer reside in the property, the remaining tenant can assume full control, pending a formal notice to the landlord. Clara's dramatic exit, her suitcase, her Instagram story declaring she was trading up, that was a pretty clear declaration of intent. Her text message about coming to get my things was the cherry on top. She wasn't coming to discuss the lease. She was coming to clear out. At 11 a.m. on Saturday, I called a locksmith. A very nice, very efficient guy who had the locks on my front door changed in under 30 minutes. He gave me 3 new keys. At 11:45 a.m., I emailed our landlord. I attached screenshots of Clara's Instagram story, her text message, and a formal declaration that she had abandoned the property as per Clause 7B of our rental agreement. I informed him that I had changed the locks to secure the premises as the sole remaining tenant and would be assuming the full rent payment moving forward. I CC'd my lawyer. At noon sharp, the doorbell rang. I didn't use the peephole this time. I opened the door. There stood Clara, arms crossed, a smirk on her face. Behind her were 2 police officers, looking bored and slightly uncomfortable. And behind them, parked at the curb, was Liam. He was leaning against a shiny black Range Rover, sunglasses on, trying to look imposing. It was the first time I'd seen him in person. He was shorter than he looked in his photos. "I'm here for my things," Clara announced, her voice loud enough for the officers to hear clearly. "I have an escort to ensure my safety." I gave her a calm, polite smile. "I'm afraid you can't come in, Clara." Her smirk vanished. "What are you talking about? My name is on the lease." "It is," I agreed. "But you abandoned the property. As per our lease agreement, and as per the notification I've already sent to our landlord, I've secured the premises. You forfeited your right to access when you vacated without notice." The color drained from her face. She turned to one of the officers. "Officer, he's locked me out of my own apartment." The officer, a world-weary guy in his 50s, sighed. "Sir, is her name on the lease?" "It was," I said, holding up a copy of my email to the landlord. "But this is a civil matter, officer, not a criminal one. She has abandoned the property. I have legally secured it. You can see my correspondence with the landlord right here. If she believes she has a right to enter, she needs to take it up with the landlord or get a court order." The officer read the email. He looked from me to Clara. He understood immediately. This was a domestic dispute that had been kicked into the civil realm. His job was to keep the peace, not to interpret lease agreements. "Ma'am," the officer said, turning to Clara, "he's right. We can't force him to let you in. This is a landlord-tenant issue. You need to go to court." Clara's face was a mask of incandescent rage. "This is insane. All my things are in there. My clothes. My laptop. You should have thought of that before you publicly announced you were leaving me for a married man," I said, my voice still quiet, still calm. Liam finally decided to saunter over from his chariot. "Hey man, just let her get her stuff. Don't be a dick." I looked at him, really looked at him. The expensive watch, the perfect teeth, the casual arrogance. "You must be Liam. Congratulations, by the way, on the baby." He froze. The officers exchanged a glance. Clara looked like she was about to spontaneously combust. "I've packed some of your essentials for you," I said, turning back to Clara. I reached inside the door and pulled out 2 cardboard boxes. Inside, I had packed her toothbrush, some toiletries, a few changes of clothes I knew she didn't care about, and her favorite framed photo of her and her mother. A little touch of psychological warfare. I placed the boxes on the ground outside the door. The rest of your belongings will be held in storage. My lawyer will be in touch with yours to arrange a time for a professional moving company to retrieve them at your expense. You are not to come back to this property. She just stared at me, speechless. All her bluster, all her power plays had evaporated. The police officers were now just awkward bystanders at a very public, very brutal breakup. "Let's go, Clara," Liam muttered, grabbing her arm. He looked small, defeated. He shot me a hateful glare and steered her back towards the Range Rover. "You will regret this," she shrieked over her shoulder. I just closed the door. I leaned against it, the new key cool in my hand. I could hear them arguing as they drove away. The police officers got in their car and left. Silence. It wasn't a perfect victory. The apartment felt huge and empty. Every room held a memory, and I knew the legal fight was just beginning. This wasn't the end, but in that moment, standing in the quiet of my reclaimed home, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. And then I started packing the rest of her things. Every last sequin top, every live, laugh, love sign, every bit of her life that had infested mine. It was time to clean house. Final update: the dog, the debt, and the deposition. It's in 6 months. Life doesn't have neat endings, and this story is no exception. There's no ticker tape parade. There's just the aftermath. Thank you again to everyone who followed along. Writing this out has been more therapeutic than I could have imagined. The legal battle was as ugly as I expected. Liam's family money meant they came at me hard. They tried to sue me for the value of Clara's belongings, claiming I had stolen them. They tried to get me evicted. They sent threatening letter after threatening letter. My lawyer, bless his cynical heart, handled it all. The turning point was the deposition. It's a legal meeting where lawyers from both sides get to question you under oath. It was held in a sterile conference room in a downtown high-rise. Me, my lawyer, Clara, and her slick, expensive lawyer. Liam was not there. His own legal troubles, it seemed, were keeping him busy. Clara's lawyer tried to paint me as a monster. He brought up the Instagram post. "So, Mr. my last name, you admit you posted this photo with the express intent to cause my client and her associate public humiliation?" "No," I said calmly. "I posted a picture of my fiancée. I congratulated her on her new relationship, which she had just announced, and I tagged the people involved. I believe in transparency." He then moved on to her belongings. He produced an itemized list of things she claimed I was holding hostage. It was absurd. Designer handbags, expensive jewelry, even a Peloton bike. She was claiming I owed her tens of thousands of dollars. My lawyer leaned forward. "We have a U-Haul receipt, a storage unit contract, and a full video inventory of the items removed from the apartment, all dated the day after Ms. Clara's last name attempted to forcibly enter the premises. The items are available for her retrieval at any time, once she pays the outstanding balance for the moving and storage, as is her responsibility." Clara's lawyer's face tightened. He clearly hadn't been informed of this. But the real bomb dropped when my lawyer started his questioning of Clara. He was methodical. He was quiet. He walked her through the timeline of her affair. "My lawyer, Ms. Clara's last name. When did your relationship with Mr. Liam's last name begin?" "Clara, we were just friends." "My lawyer, is it your testimony that you took a friend on a weekend trip to Napa, paid for with a credit card you shared with my client, 2 months before you left him?" He produced a credit card statement. Clara's face went pale. He then brought up Sarah, Liam's wife. He had her public social media posts, the happy announcements, the due date. "My lawyer, were you aware that Mr. Liam's last name, wife, was 9 months pregnant when you began your public relationship with him?" "Clara, his marriage was over. He told me so." "My lawyer, is that what he told his wife?" It was a bloodbath. Every lie, every deception laid bare under the flat, fluorescent lighting of that conference room. She crumbled. By the end, she was just staring at the table, her hands trembling. Her lawyer called for a recess. They settled the next day. She dropped all claims to the items in storage, which I later sold, paid off the storage unit, and donated the rest to a women's shelter. She agreed to sign a form officially relinquishing all rights to the apartment. In return, I agreed not to countersue for the money she had spent on her affair using our joint accounts. I just wanted it to be over. As for Liam and Sarah, the last I heard, the divorce was brutal. Sarah, from what I can gather through the grapevine, is a force of nature. She used his public infidelity, my post, and Clara's own digital trail to her full advantage. He's paying through the nose. The girl dad is now a once-a-month supervised visit dad. The Range Rover is gone. His Instagram is now private. Clara and Liam are, shockingly, still together. Misery loves company, I suppose. I see her sometimes in public. She looks smaller. The confident, curated glow she always had is gone, replaced by a kind of brittle defensiveness. We don't make eye contact. And me? I'm okay. The ending isn't perfect. There are scars. I still have moments of raw anger, of deep sadness for the 5 years I lost. I have to consciously fight off a cynical voice in my head when I meet new people. Trust doesn't come easy anymore. The apartment is mine now. It's redecorated. Less gray and beige, more color. More of me. Buster is happy. He has the whole bed to himself most nights. A few weeks ago, I was at a dog park. Buster was chasing a ball, and a woman next to me on the bench laughed. He's got a lot of energy, she said. We started talking. About dogs, about the neighborhood, about nothing. Her name is Anne. She has a goofy golden retriever and a warm, genuine smile. We're getting coffee next week. I'm not expecting anything. I'm not looking for a grand romance or a Hollywood ending. But for the first time in a long time, I feel a flicker of something I thought was gone for good. Hope. It's a quiet, logical kind of hope. The kind that comes after the storm has passed, and you're left standing in the wreckage, but you realize you're still standing. And you can start to rebuild.